Thanks, Joe. Sean, if you would bring up that first slide, please. Thank you. Well, what a memorable experience. Joe asked me to share a few things, not only that year, but give a little bit of an update on kind of globally what's happening too, and then he's going to cover some further details from a district standpoint. But wanted to share just a quick story because the slide I have up here says, what ignites your passion? And when I thought about that, I knew exactly what ignited mine. I became a member of a Rotary Club in 1982, but it was a few years later in 1987-88 that I became a Rotarian, and it was because of Joe Whittemore and the opportunity to be a part of this PolioPlus initiative. It showed me the value that we give, and thanks again to the team that rallied that year. A lot of great work, but a lot of heartfelt, wonderful memories from it. And from that, and here it is 25 years later, and still working at things, and I thank you for that. Did want to share a couple of things here, and on this next slide, it shows some figures, and not to dwell on those, because what I really want to dwell on for just a moment is the result of the contributions we make. But in our district, when you look back over 25 years, we have given in District 6910 $1,165,000 for PolioPlus. In District 6910. And as we looked at the figures, and Joe and I talked about this, you look back, the total giving to the Rotary Foundation over the last 25 years is over $8 million. $8 million. A little over 3,000 members in the district. Huge accomplishment, so congratulations and thank you to you all. But I think the question is what does this accomplish? And on the next slide here, what I tried to do is equate the results of what these dollars bring in. And when I divide the number of dollars for polio by 60 cents a drop, you folks in District 6910 have been responsible for immunizing 194 children against polio. Think about that. Did you ever think when you joined Rotary that you could be a part of something like that? So give yourself a hand for that accomplishment too. But the other part, and I think in our clubs we don't really think about how we change what we do in our communities. But if you look at the number of ambassadorial scholars over the last 25 years, we've had 78 scholars that we have supported. When those folks come back to their communities, do they not enrich that community by their experience and the experience they had in meeting other students in their year studying abroad? During this time, we have sponsored 24 group study exchange teams. I see you out there. And with those five-person teams that we have all of these folks and utilize these folks too as alumni for your programs and things in your clubs, wonderful programs. But again, enriching lives and sharing in cultural experiences and building those bridges for friendships and so forth. And lastly, your dollars, that $8 million, supported 277 matching grants. 207, just think about the lives that we have changed because of those grants and the result of that. So we thank you for that. I'd like to share a brief memory, and in the next slide here, Joe and I were talking about this the other day, a lot of things as we talked about this that brought back some wonderful memories on things. This picture right here is from the district conference at Callaway Gardens in 1988, Joe's district conference as district governor. And I still remember we had 494 Paul Harris Fellows that year. We had about 180 at the conference. So this picture here is, probably, I think in the picture itself, or a little over 100. We had about 180 that we walked in as a procession during the banquet on Saturday night. And I still remember that. It's still kind of heartwarming whenever I think about it, Joe. What a great experience and what a great accomplishment because of the vision that Joe had during that time. So just to share a little bit about the memory, the other part, as I really looked at this closely, sure is a lot of dark hair in that picture. And I don't see any of that in any pictures these days. But it was a great memory. A brief update, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Joe, but I did want to share some really good news to you. In the next slide here is where do we stand with polio now? And got a couple of slides to show you that will talk about the number of countries that are endemic now, the number of children immunized, and just partners. I want to share a little bit with you. We're not in this alone. There have been a lot of partners that are involved in this. In the next slide, back a little over a year ago, we really established a real milestone. And the young child right in the center of that picture, her name is Ruxar Kutan. She's 13 months old. And the significant thing about that is that Ruxar is the last polio case in India in 2011. The last case. I thought putting a face and name there on that one, significant. I mean, India is a country with 1.2 billion people, and it has been a huge challenge just by way of the population and the nature of the country and the remote areas and everything. So that last face, the last case. So we are down to 3 countries that are endemic now, and then the next slide shows that, and they are Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Nigeria. And when you look back in '85, when all this started out, there was about 1,000 cases of polio a day in 125 countries endemic. Now we're only 3 countries endemic: Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Nigeria. Last year, in 2011, there were about 650 cases of polio, and in this recent year, only 223 cases. Think about the significance of this. And you have been a part of all of that. We have been a part of that. So great accomplishment, and thank you for your contributions and support over the years. Lastly, did want to share, as I mentioned, we're not in this alone. And we do have partners in this. And the next slide, basically, it illustrates the logos of the World Health Organization, UNICEF, CDC, and the Gates Foundation. On that next slide, please, Sean. There you go. But the other significant one, and in this next chart in the next slide, is that it shows all of these. There are over 20 countries, countries and governments, and multiple organizations that share in this. It's not just us. We're the catalyst with it that has made the difference and brought it together. But I thought it was a good point to make because it has gone on for 25 years. But we have been the catalyst to bring all these partners together in these countries, and you may not be able to see some of the slides, but significant dollars and contributions from these other areas. So you are part of that too. So in the next slide, as you have seen so many times, we are this close, 99% there from where we are, and down to those last 3 countries, only 223 cases this year. But we are still a powerful voice, and with your energy and enthusiasm and generosity, we'll finish this job. So I thank you for your valued support, and remember, especially those that are you that are president-elects this year, that you have an opportunity to go back and do great things, and that I would just ask you to go back in your clubs and ignite the passion in your members. Thank you.